All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're going to get started another minute here. Let everyone get settled in. All right. We are going to get started. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. My name is John Moretti. I am a principal solutions architect here at eSentire. I've been here for 6 years. Before that, I came from partners and stuff. And today joining me is Mike Brunetti with eSentire. And I got to say, first of all, listen, eSentire, these guys have been partners with eSentire for over 8 years. And you guys have been an amazing partner. And thank you, Mike, for joining us and doing this with me today. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, John. And thank you, everybody, for attending this webinar. My name is Mike Brunetti, Director of Professional Services here at eSentire. I have been with the organization over 14 years now.
Wow,
and
14 years. That's awesome, Mike.
yeah, it has been a little bit. Started as an analyst and kind of worked my way through the ranks. And now I run our incident response practice as well as pretty much any consulting side of the business. So really excited to talk to you about how what is going on with ransomware and how to prepare yourself for it. So thank you,
Yeah.
John, for inviting me to the webinar, and excited to talk about this pretty terrible topic.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is. I mean, it's a never-ending battle, to be truly honest with you. But before we get started, I just want to say again, thank you everyone for joining. And while we're going through this, I want to make this super interactive. Mike and I have talked about this. We do not want to bore you guys with slides. We want you guys to interact with us. So please, if you have any questions, we have the eSentire team and the eSentire team here to answer these questions live. So as you have questions, please put them in the chat, in the Q&A window. We will answer them live. So we want to make this, again, very interactive. So let's get started. All right, Mike, let's go. All right, so
Ready.
Really quick, some basics about what we're going to talk about today. Ransomware, what is it, first of all, right? So this guy is a digital menace for sure, right? If you think about it, it's like a ransom, right? What it is at the core is malicious software designed to block access to your computer for a sum of money. Right? So they encrypt your computer, your hard drive, take all of your data and lock it until you pay that ransom. Now, what's scary is it's advancing, right? If you think about AI, a lot of things that we're seeing out there in the wild, ransomware as a service. So now we can actually, the threat actors are actually taking ransomware, selling it, and using this like on the dark web and selling it, renting out their malware that they created to maybe threat actors who aren't that experienced. They don't know a lot, but they are able to buy this or take their package of ransomware as a service and use it against an organization, right? So ransomware is an easy way for a threat actor now to gain access to your environment, take control of it, and you have to pay that ransom or you lose everything. And that's where we see a lot of those initial access brokers. We're going to talk about that. Think about that as eBay for threat actors. They're selling their stuff on eBay. They're bidding, a lot of threat actors are bidding for it. Nice little packages that do a lot of the work for these guys, and they get right into your environment without any experience. And the thing to keep in mind, too, is threat actors have to be right one time. That's it. And they're in your environment. eSentire and Tara, folks like Mike and I, we have to be right every single time we're going through an investigation or stopping a threat or doing something because we can't afford to be wrong. We have to be right every time. And it's not easy. It's getting more and more difficult. We're going to talk a little bit about the dark web, and we're going to touch on the Lockbit ransomware group. We see a lot of these. These guys are in the news a lot. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about, some of the basics, and we're going to dive right in. So first of all, Mike, I'm going to hand it off to you, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about eSentire.
Thank you. So, everybody, Intera has been around,
See,
going on.
I keep saying Intara. Is it Intera or Intara?
It's
I've heard
Intera.
Intera.
Everyone,
Got
you
it.
could say it either way, but
Okay.
the founder and owner of the company, specifically named it Intera, um, and has a little bit to do with the name of her child, and
Ah, there
there's
you go.
all sorts of background around the name Intera. But in the end, we started back in 2001. We started working with trading and financial companies as a managed service provider. And over the years, we really saw that security was becoming so critical to all of the organizations that we manage and maintain. So a few years ago, we coined the term extended service provider. This is really the marriage between an MSP and an MSSP, where the traditional MSP, your help desk, your infrastructure management, your backups, and cloud management, all that stuff we are able to do. We're staffed 24/7, 365, and have over 100 resources here in the US supporting our clients across the US. Um, so we have the traditional managed services side. We also have the managed security services side, and that has been powered by eSentire for the last 7, 8 years. And that includes logging, MDR solutions, MFA solutions, anything that you need from a security standpoint to protect yourself against these threat actors. We are able to provide you the software as well as the day-to-day management of that. We really try to be a strategic service for your organization and make sure that we are helping you grow your organization, grow your revenue, while also securing it at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Mike. And I have to tell you, everyone, um, the really key feature that I really want to point out is I love that working together with these guys, they're actually growing and scaling with every one of their customers, right? So it's not just an organization that's putting tools in your environment and letting it go. These guys make sure that your stuff is optimized constantly. You have to today, right? A tool is
Yep.
just a tool. You have to optimize those tools all the time because everyone's environment changes every single day. So you have to keep those things optimized. And I love that what you guys do with that. And it's amazing. Like I said, a great partnership. I love it. We've been partners for a long, long time. And it's
Yep.
great. I love
And
it.
one of the other unique things about us is that next bullet point. We've done over 150,000 professional service hours of hands-on incident response. So that is working alongside organizations that have been hit with some of the worst ransomware out there, where their entire environment is encrypted. We are partnered with all the different forensic partners out there, the insurance companies, the legal firms. Our specialty in this space is your infrastructure recovery. So we are the boots on the ground, actually re-imaging all your workstations. We are rebuilding all of your servers and getting them back up and running, in the most strategic way possible to reduce the amount of business loss, get your critical and revenue generating systems up as fast as humanly possible. I have a team of over 60 resources that are fully dedicated to just helping people out on their worst day. And we're learning from that experience of what the threat actors are doing. And that feeds into our standards and our processes and services on the security side to protect all of our clients against what these threat actors are doing. How are they getting in? What software they're using? What are the different controls that we could put in place to identify it sooner rather than later? All of that stuff.
And right there, Mike, that is a critical key component. Most organizations honestly don't do that or don't have the time to learn and understand and change what the threat actors are doing. You want to reverse engineer it so you can block it or help it or stop it before it gets in the environment. So you understand what you're seeing. And like I said, a lot of organizations, they don't have the ability to do that. And it's amazing that you do. That's what we do at eSentire, like our SOC analysts and some of our teams that do that. And that's really, the kind of individuals we need. They're like SOC analysts. It takes a special
Yep.
individual to be able to reverse engineer this stuff. Because if you gave it to me, I would be like, I have no idea what you want me to do. So,
Exactly.
to be able to do that is critical. It is super critical to be able to perform that task. And that's amazing. Um,
Yep.
So yeah, a little bit about us real quick. We've been doing this again just as long as you guys, since 2001. We started back in the financial district in New York. And actually, it's funny, Mike and I were talking about this before. These guys have our flagship service. We started with our network sensor way back in the day. It was a tool that our founder used in Wall Street in New York and the financial district. And they said, hey, after he was done consulting and showing the customers what was going on, they said, we want to keep this stuff. So that's where we went back to Waterloo, and he developed eSentire. And that's where we started. So yeah, we were talking about that before, and you have our flagship component where we started way back in 2000, or late 90s, 2000. So we have two global operations center. We're going to touch on that real quick. They've been, we have 160 SOC experts between those two global operations centers looking at our customers' environments. And we want to show you what that looks like. But we have many different awards and all this great stuff. But the thing I want to talk about here is the rapid time to contain, the mean time to contain. So what does that exactly mean? Just like Mike was mentioning, we want to stop and contain a threat as quickly as possible. So our average is 15 minutes. We're actually averaging about 12. That means we contain threats, so the organization doesn't have that business disruption. Doesn't mean that we did the full investigation. Doesn't mean that we went there and started the process of remediation with, encryption, things like that. But we contain that threat. We stopped it, and that's critical today to want to get the threat actor out of that environment as quickly as possible. So the thing here is, if you think about it. And we were talking about, ransomware and these threats today, they have changed over the years. Everything has evolved. I mean, I remember being in the days of Symantec and McAfee was just antivirus. You used to update the antivirus and boom, you were safe, right? And that was really it. Now, it's not just your endpoint, because that's what you would think about, right? So I changed that from endpoint to entity. So entity is a user, it's data, it's your endpoint, it's your virtual machines, it's your cloud environment, it's everything that makes the organization. And what you want to really do today is have that visibility and be able to detect all those different points. And, there's many different analogies we always use, but I always think about like a house, right? You have an upstairs and a downstairs, you have a basement maybe, and you have windows all over. You want to make sure that you have alarms and cameras maybe on every window, because when you don't, one of those windows is going to be where a threat actor will get in and you'll have no idea. So you want to have that full visibility, and then also have cameras inside as well, right? So that's critical, having that full spectrum visibility, we call it. And then having not only a platform or AI or some of that technology, but a human being behind it all as well, to make sure and verify, yeah, this is something that's a threat, or maybe it's a 0-day. A lot of these amazing platforms, that we have, and tools we have, if it's a 0-day, it has no idea what to do with it. You have to have human interaction, and that's where we have that response. And our goal, working with encryption, is really to help our customers become cyber resilient. And what that means is anticipating when something's going to happen, being able to withstand that cyber attack, and then recover as quickly as possible. But the other key feature is to really help customers adapt and evolve as the environments change. You have to have that platform. We were just talking about before, Mike, have to have that platform and those tools that are optimized and change all the time.
Absolutely.
All right. So how do we do all that good stuff? Well, we have our XDR platform. So XDR platform, you probably heard that term out there, XDR, MDR. XDR is our platform, and that's how we deliver our MDR service. So XDR stands for Extended Detection and Response. So that means multiple different signals, right? Looking at network or endpoint or log, cloud, your identity, vulnerability information, dark web information. We bring all that data and all those different signals into our platform. We enrich it all. We normalize it. It goes through our AI, our machine learning algorithms, all that good stuff that happens in the back end. And what's presented to our SOC and our teams are a single dashboard and a single pane of glass. Now, we have built custom APIs. This is our own platform. We have built custom APIs to every backend open integration and service that we support. So for example, if a customer has Microsoft and they see some threat on some endpoint using a Microsoft tool, we see it in our dashboard as well. So our SOC analysts can react and take response actions based on our customers' requirements. every customer is different. Everyone needs different response actions. So that's all customized. We can do that. And then our true team, you see above the SOC there, our 24/7, 365 SOC. Our threat response unit team, these are folks that proactively threat hunt. And this is, I think this is a key that's important, Mike, what you were speaking about before. Going out and watching what threat actors are doing, what threat actors are working with threat groups, watching social media platforms, going through the dark web and watching what's happened in cybersecurity as a whole. Sometimes we take it for granted, maybe we don't think about it, but everything that's happening in the world today, all the wars, all the conflict everywhere, threat actors are using that information against us. They're pulling at your heartstrings. They're sending texts, and there's malicious email all the time, phishing emails, and people are clicking on these things and they look legitimate. It's getting more and more difficult to see if it's a bad, phishing campaign. Sometimes it looks so real, you don't know. And threat actors are using AI and using those tools and those ransomware kits against us. So this team proactively threat hunts every single day for all of our customers. And these are the folks that reverse engineer a lot of that stuff, Mike, so we can actually put all those tools and those run books and all those things back into our platform. So this platform changes every single day as well.
And it's so important to have all the different signals. Like you said, having every single window covered within your house or monitored within, if you just are looking at your endpoints and not at the network, you're gonna be missing things. And we can tell you from experience of what we're seeing in companies that have been hit. It's one little thing missing. It's the unmanaged device that's on the network that is the cause of the actual deployment of that malware. If you don't have 100% coverage of your EDR solution, if you don't have hardened firewalls and actually inspection inbound and outbound of your internet, you really got to be doing at least the bare minimum. We'll kind of talk about that later on. But making sure that you have a diversified source of signals that are going into your SOC is very important.
100%. Yeah.
eSentire does a great job of normalizing that and turning it into something that people can actually understand.
Yeah, it's getting more and more difficult too with a lot of the folks and organizations, letting their employees bring their own devices in, right?
Yep. Remote workforce, right?
Yeah, remote work. Exactly. And a threat actor, I mean, we've seen a lot of stuff. We actually saw something not too long ago where a customer, it was a remote worker. They bought a new television and they installed it in their home, obviously, and they connected to the internet. And most people don't realize this, but those TVs are smart devices. If they connect to the internet, a threat actor can get on that. There's software that runs on those devices, right? Our televisions, those smart TVs. So this was not patched. And actually, it was actually in the news not too long ago, this organization who has this television. And they had a vulnerability. Threat actors hopped on it and they actually got on the person's device. And once they connected to their VPN, that's when we saw some of that action, took action for the customer, realized what happened.
Smart devices, IoT devices
right.
I mean, you think of your smart fridge. How often do you do software updates of your fridge?
I mean, honestly.
It's crazy to even say those words in the same sentence, that you have to take a refrigerator and update it. But if you're giving it an IP address on your network and you're not isolating it from the rest of your network,
100%.
it is 100% vulnerable, and most likely it's going to be that little thing that's running some very lightweight version of Linux that is doing a very simple task, like turning on your lights or giving you a warning of your fridge is at the wrong temperature, like something that simple. You think of a garage door. This remote workforce has caused everything to be extended to your employees' homes and their home network. And you need policies and procedures to handle that, and kind of moving towards zero trust. Something that we can talk about later is so critical. And at least having EDR, MDR solutions that are monitoring everything on a protected device and a company-owned device.
100%. The zero trust approach, and that is critical today. I would definitely recommend moving towards a zero trust. It's funny. I was just thinking, we just got a new washer and dryer, and would you know, our washer and dryer has internet access or can have internet access. I didn't set it up, but I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't need to know.
At
That's
my house, I
crazy.
have everything that's smart on a separate network,
You have
completely
to.
isolated from work devices.
Yeah, it's crazy today. So why are we talking about this platform and all these things? It's ransomware, right? So that's what we'll touch on. This is why it's so important to have that full spectrum visibility and really ingest all those signals like we were just speaking about. So ransomware, this is a crazy statistic. Actually, a lot of these statistics, they probably have already changed a lot. But the key here, if you think about this, is not everybody thinks, well, it's my organization's not enterprise. I don't have to worry about it. It's the small to medium-sized organizations today that are getting a lot of those cyber attacks. Over 61% are small to medium-sized businesses today. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what your services you offer. You can be attacked, right? You are, it can happen. It doesn't matter what you're doing today. Don't think that it's only for enterprise, that you don't have to worry about it, because that's not the case. And if you think about some of those targeted industries today, manufacturing, retail, construction, I thought, why would a construction site be a target? But think about that. Threat actors get a construction site, they have all your building material, all those different things, hospital stuff. I mean, we see that in the news
Oof.
all the time. We're going to talk about that later.
Yep.
Transportation, right? Finance, energy, and utilities. Think about a threat actor group that's so powerful. They take over. We have energy. I know there was a thing going on along the East Coast about the power lines that go up the whole East Coast. And it's funny, I didn't even realize this, but the way the power runs in our whole country, there's like different, I don't want to call them silos, but they're segments, right? Think about that. And if they took off the East Coast, if threat actor got the entire East Coast, they would take down the entire East Coast, not just like where I live in New Jersey or New York. They would take the whole thing down. So, I mean, think about that, how we built this infrastructure so long ago, we never thought about where we would be today.
Yep.
And a lot of
Yeah,
that stuff is old stuff on it.
absolutely it's interesting on how well your report aligns to the real world that we have seen with our client breakdown. So in the last couple of years, we've done over 200 recoveries from ransomware.
Wow.
And I would
Wow.
pretty much say right around 50% of that is that under 100 employee size organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
We work on small all the way up to Fortune 100 organizations and government entities and stuff like that we've done recoveries for. But there is no rhyme or reason of which industry is being hit, what size they're being hit. It is purely opportunistic of whose account was compromised and how easy was it them to elevate their credentials within the environment to then deploy their ransomware.
Yeah.
It's the people that aren't. If you talked to me a year ago, we could have said 95 to 100% of companies were not running EDR, and they had a phished email. They were able to get onto a workstation and harvest credentials with a tool called Mimikatz. It's like
Yep.
90% of ransomware started that way, got domain admin creds and deployed their ransomware, and then just waited for them to reach out.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they're getting more advanced because I think the industry has definitely become more secure. Everyone has become more secure because of everything that's in the news and what you're seing here.
Right.
Doesn't matter
100%.
who you are, and
Nope.
they are going to ask a ridiculous amount of money to decrypt your infrastructure or not release your environment, because in the end, they also will go in and look at your data and try to find your books and see how much cash on hand you have, how much revenue you generate. And they're going to be very strategic in building that ransom amount that they put in front of you. And it's going to be a very uncomfortable amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'm glad you brought that up. And I was going to bring this up later on, but I get questions all the time. I'm sure you do. Should we ever pay that ransom? Now
Such a hard question.
it is a hard question, but I would always say no. I would never want to ever pay that ransom, because it doesn't guarantee that threat actors are ever going to get out of your environment. So what we were
Correct.
seeing, right, is a threat actor compromising an organization. They say, hey, pay this amount. And it's a small amount sometimes to start. So of course they pay that and they give them a little bit of their data back, but then they say, okay, look, now the threat actors know they paid it once, they're going to pay again. So now they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you the rest of your stuff, but here you go. You got to pay this giant amount, and they can't afford it. So when
Yeah,
you,
so it's a much more complicated answer than that.
yeah, it is. It's
So
hard.
think of it this way. You go to a medium-sized organization, maybe a 300 person, 500 person marketing firm, and their entire business is based off of digital media. They have images, videos, content like that
Yeah.
that is fully encrypted. And the threat actor completely deleted all of their backups, and their VMs are fully encrypted at the ESX VMware level. If they do not get access to that content again, they will go under. And if a threat actor is asking for $1 million ransom, and this is a $500 million company, what do?
Right. Yeah,
You got to
that's
pay,
yeah,
right?
that's
You
tough.
got to
Yeah.
unlock that data because it's digital assets that are unable to be recreated without the business going completely under.
Right.
So it is a much at I hate that we have to pay ransom and that
Yeah.
is even an option because it is just making this industry bigger and bigger.
Right.
But you have to put yourself in the shoes of the business that just got impacted. And if paying that ransom means the business can continue, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
I agree. With that, when you have no, when it's all digital like that, and that's a great point. You really have no other option. I mean, how do you protect yourself against that? I mean,
yeah,
I would love to say, listen, you put eSentire in there and let Entire take over, you'll never have a problem. I would love to tell you that, but that's not reality. But what you want to do, and this is where Entire can help tremendously with eSentire, is help you take that zero trust approach. And what does that really mean? Think about this.
yep,
Taking your, reducing your attack surface. So as close as you can bring it to one, bring it to the entity, right? So that means if something ever happens, it's a small little impact. It's not everything. Now,
there you go.
yes,
That is the key to
that
this,
is,
right?
yeah, yep,
Smaller impact. It's not going to be an entire business down if you follow security best practices.
right.
And if you listen and follow our guidance around how to protect your environment from a backup and a storage level snapshot, we'll talk about this in a little bit.
Yeah,
The recover you will not need to pay that ransom
right.
because you have quality backups. Yeah, you may have some downtime while we restore them, but and
You're
there's
not out
ways
of
to even
business.
speed up. You're not going to ever be out of
Yeah,
business. You're not going to be
right.
out of risk at that. And business continuity plans and disaster recovery
Right.
running actually through these exercises in a theoretical standpoint to prepare you for when this happens, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and it's
Yep.
also a matter of how large,
And I
depending on
love
what you
that.
do.
I love that, Mike. The digital, the business continuity plan, running through those tabletop exercises, coming up with a disaster recovery plan in case something ever happens. You need to make sure you do that. And the having everyone in your organization understand that, right? It's not just upper management, it's everybody, and coming
Yep.
out with those policies and procedures, starting there. And these guys can help you. And Tara can help you with those policies and procedures, at least guiding you along the way. Say, look, here's what we see in the industry, and here's the best practices. Let's help you, Mr. Customer, write your own policies and procedures, and we'll put them to the test. That's the best way to do it. You got to start there and then build your security posture from that point. I think that's a great point, Mike. I love that.
Yep.
All right. So, the Microsoft Digital Defense Report. Let's just really talk about some of this really quick. Most human operated ransomware attacks compromise, like we were talking about, some of those unmanaged and, bring your own devices, those televisions, the refrigerator, a person using their own laptop for work, right? Things like that, because we don't have any visibility there. We are seeing 80 to 90% of those ransomware compromises coming from those unmanaged devices. And ransomware
Also,
starts right there.
OT devices. So if you
Yep.
have, we see a lot of manufacturing companies that have very complex manufacturing lines that have a lot of automation and connectivity back to like an ERP solution or something
Right.
like that. But those machines were built 15 years ago. They're running XP or Windows 2000 server, and they're multi-million dollar machines that are meant to live for 30 years. You
Right.
gotta isolate those devices from the network. You need to build true microsegmentation and zero trust around those, and you need to work on unmanaged devices completely, because like it's saying right there, that is a one what we're seeing in our breaches that's not happening on the device that's fully patched and monitored and all that stuff. It's the holes within your environment that you're not really managing and maintaining or even know about,
Right.
right? Could
A
be just
hundred.
an old mobile phone that is
Right.
attached to your work wireless,
I,
right? Like so
all
many
those.
different ways.
Yeah, all those unmanaged devices you're seeing, that's what threat actors are doing. That's what ransomware is looking for, is those exploiting those vulnerabilities. Once it gets in there, they have a foothold in your environment. We're also seeing some of those attacks where threat actors are, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but how they get in and what they're doing inside that environment before they even start attacking. So we're going to talk about that. But Microsoft, they put a lot of money into security, and they run these reports all the time, and we're seeing more than 200% since last September of ransomware attacks. They're just going up and up and up. So really what we're thinking about here is targeting those personal unmanaged devices. Threat actors are looking for that stuff. We've got to look beyond, like Mike, you were just talking about, those patched and managed corporate devices. It's those things that are not patched, those people working remote, right? There's got to be policies and procedures. That's where you start. And that's what, threat actors are looking for. So Microsoft did a whole report on what they're seeing, and it's the same. It's really across the board. It's those unmanaged devices that are just letting threat actors into the
Bring,
environment.
bring your own devices from a remote workforce world that are connecting through VPN.
Yep.
Big no.
Big
Gotta
mistake. Yep.
Yeah, they need to be protected if you're connected to VPN. VPN shouldn't even be used anymore.
I
Right.
couldn't agree more. We see more. It's crazy. We see people that go to like Starbucks, or they go to a hotel is the worst, but they go there and they connect to their organization through their VPN. Threat actors already know how to bypass that. Now think about this. If I was a threat actor and I compromised your VPN credentials, now it looks like legitimate traffic coming into the environment. No one's going to stop that. It doesn't look bad because you know what? I'm allowed to get in because I can VPN in. And the problem with VPNs is that if I VPN into my office right now, right, if I was using a traditional VPN and I am an administrator, I have access to everything, right? I'm not restricted to certain things. And that's a problem right there, because once my credentials are compromised, a threat actor again has access to everything that looks like me. It looks like legitimate traffic. So now they can start doing stuff. So I agree with you, Mike. I wish we didn't use VPNs. We don't use them at eSentire really at all, but I know what you're saying. Once they're easily compromised today. It's getting more and
Yep.
more difficult.
Yep.
So what is a typical ransomware attack flow? What does it look like? Right. So let's talk about some of these pieces here. So if you look at the stages, right, infiltrate, establishing a foothold, and escalation privileges. This is the breakout phase. Threat actors today are sitting in environments. We are seeing, we actually got a new customer not too long ago. They were looking at a few MDR providers, and they reached out to us and say, look, I think we got a problem. There's some wacky stuff happening in our environment. So we went in and we helped this customer out. They're a customer actually now. But we found that they were compromised for 5 years before anything ever happened. A threat actor in there today, they are not only infiltrating the environment, right? And they're looking to escalate the privileges and look for those service accounts that may be dormant in the environment. Now, what a service account is, that may be an account that has access to run certain things in the environment or connect to certain databases, for example, that have full privileges, but are not used anymore. That means that account is just sitting there, not being used, but a threat actor can grab that, take the account over, find out what the password is, and then has access to everything in the environment. So threat actors are sitting in your environment. They're learning everything that you're doing, what services you sell, what the names of all your servers are, what, files, the CEO accesses every day, what their habits are, what time they leave, what time they come in the morning. They learn everything about the organization before they start anything. And what we're seeing today is threat actors getting all this information, and then they're going to sell it. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the breakout phase is where you want to stop, right? That's where you want to shrink down and get that attack surface closest to the entity. So that way, if there is ever a compromise, it's one or two or three at the most endpoints, not the whole organization, right? So this is where we're seeing threat actors really take those three stages, and they're making their own ransomware as a service or a ransomware package, and they're selling it. Now, what does that mean? Think about some of the places where ransomware is sold, right? On the dark web, on some of these different services that we're seeing. If I was an inexperienced threat actor today, I can actually go on a website and buy those three stages without having to know how to do it. And I'll already get into the environment. So we're seeing ransomware groups build these methods, all these different technologies, and they're renting it and selling it on the dark web. And that's a problem, right? Phishing as a service now, validating those credentials. There are so many different tools out there that we're finding grabbing credentials and users' information, because a lot of that stuff is in clear text, right? So they're grabbing some of that data, malware as a service. And the big one is those auction houses. That is like that eBay for these threats. It's absolutely getting crazy. This is where dark web monitoring and these services are critical, right? So these are some of the different markets that we're seeing. There's phishing as a service. There's these credential markets. So if I was a threat actor and I just grab credentials, I can go into your environment, grab those credentials, and then sell a little package. Here's credentials for this organization. Who wants it? Or just put it up for sale, right? Or exploit kits, different services that they can package. Now, threat actors, and this is where that ransomware as a service comes into play, right? They can actually just sell all these different pieces to these initial access brokers. That's that eBay as a service I'm talking about. So we're seeing today some of these new threat actors or threat actor groups, right, working together, and they are selling their services online. We go on the dark web all the time, and our true team and some of those folks, and they actually go there and learn what some of the new threats are. They see what these threat actors are selling, what they're doing. Obviously, we don't go in as eSentire. We're going in as a threat actor as well. So we want to go in there and find out, what are they selling? What are the new threats that are coming out? Who's working with who? What are some of those new services? And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing inexperienced threat actors who are just starting out, maybe, and they want to buy those kits that bypass those three first stages, so they don't have to take the time to do that infiltration and sit there in the environment and wait and learn what everybody's doing. It's all packaged for me, so I can say, hey, I'll buy that. And we see a lot of these guys. Let me show you what that looks like. We're seeing a lot of these auctions where it's like $5,000 to buy this kit. But we're seeing, if I want to buy it right out, just like eBay, I can buy that right there. So I think some of them start at 5,000 we saw, or I can start the bid at $2,000. I can start small and then build it up. So we are seeing tons of this happening all the time. It's getting more and more popular, and it's getting more and more complicated to stop a lot of these threat actors from selling the stuff online. So that's where the dark web monitoring, and I know you're going to talk about it later, Mike, those IR services are critical today.
Absolutely.
So some of these ransomware leak sites that we're seeing, Lockbit has been a tremendous amount in the news lately. We see a lot of this stuff going on. And we see different companies like we were talking about before, right? You can be the $1 million or up to 25 million. It's under 100 employees. That's crazy. I mean, I would think if I was a threat actor, would I want to start with a small organization? Well, maybe they're a hedge fund or something like that. We have customers at eSentire. There's about 15, 20 people, and they go through millions and millions and millions of dollars a day, right? So everybody can be a victim of ransomware. Mike, what have you guys seen about Lockbit?
So it's really interesting. So both Lockbit and AlphaV, the two kind of top ones up there, and even Conti, actually all three of the top ones up there, at one point were taken down by the US government, UK government, and EU and all that stuff. In the news, pretty big. Late last year, Lockbit was completely taken down. They had like 10,000 domains they were running under, completely seized by the US and UK governments. But all that did is slow them down. They came back pretty much a few weeks after as new types of Lockbit groups. Even AlphaV was taken down, but within a few hours, they spun up new sites and continued to do their work just as they were doing it before the law enforcement got there. So it's a little bit of that game of tag, like where they're going
Yeah,
after these guys trying to stop them, but they're unable to, right?
yeah,
Because it's so easy for them to do what they're doing with what you were just talking about, that it's packaged where you get that access, and as long as they can deploy their ransomware fairly quickly within the environment and encrypt your environment, all they really need to do is get access to your hypervisor. So
yeah.
get a domain admin account that is integrated into your VMware infrastructure, and then get on one host and run a script. They will encrypt every single VM within your environment. And that's what we've been seeing over the course of the last 6-12 months. The primary way they're hitting everybody is just taking out their servers that are virtualized,
Right.
grabbing that VHD file that runs that operating system on a VM and encrypting it, and you're dead in the water at that
You're
point.
dead. Yeah. I mean, think about a lot of people, if you're not familiar with the hypervisors and things, they run hundreds of servers for you, right? Or just
Yep.
like a cloud environment. So think about it like that. So if I get one hypervisor, I can have your whole environment if you're virtualized your whole environment. Because a
That
lot of
whole
people
data
did.
center that's connected to that, or if you're using vCenter and you have it
Yep.
linked up to all the different data centers,
Oh,
only takes one privileged account to take down the whole
everything.
server infrastructure that's running on those hypervisors.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see in the last 3 years what the top three have been. I honestly, like, this is exactly, if you look at our list of projects that we've been on, the only one that I don't think we've seen is that Doppelpaymer.
Right.
Everything else is pretty much, it's going to be, if you talked to us last year, it was going to be Conti or Lockbit is pretty much
Yeah.
everything. Black Basta was really high up there too. And they're all doing the exact same thing. They're just encrypting your VMs as much as possible. I would say if you talked to us 4 years ago, it was much more um, workstation impact, where they
Right.
actually hit the operating systems and Windows and all that stuff and
Yep.
take down all of your workstations, where you have to go and reimage all of them at that point. Um, but really interesting to see the makeup of it, what the law enforcement is going after. But it's back and forth. They take them down, they come back as a new name, or they come back as the same name and
Yeah.
keep
They don't.
on hitting all
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah, they don't care. I mean, think about it. They're using the cloud. They're using the cloud to spin these servers up and spin them down. I mean, we find malicious IP addresses of service and we block them. And we actually, what we do, and I think is pretty unique, is that, I mean, we're going to keep them in there for like 30 days and then we retest it because we find a lot of those times an IP address or a site that might be malicious today is not tomorrow because the threat actors they change them and they bring them down and they bring them up with something else. So there's new ones all the time. And it's very difficult to catch these folks because they know what they're doing and
Yep.
they know the tools and the environment. They know the patch levels of all the different hardware and equipment that you have. So it's getting easier and easier for them to compromise your environment once they're in because they know
And
what you're running.
And the thing is, we've standardized our infrastructure so much
Yeah.
that once they get in, they know the lay of the land. It's Active Directory based. They have access to the servers. I mean, the other things that you got to really be careful about. is out of band access to your servers, your ILO, your DRAC, your IPMI type connections,
Right.
because if they can get access to that, they could do anything,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. They take
So
control of everything.
yeah, I mean, we'll talk about some of the protections around storage level snapshots and how to protect backups properly, and even your hypervisor configurations more when we talk about recommendations. But um, it's there's things that you can do to slow them down or even stop them in their tracks. And you have to be putting budget toward this, priority toward this, and get awareness to the decision makers within the organization so that you can properly prioritize securing what you currently have, as well as any new initiatives that you're doing as a business, making sure that you add budget to properly secure that next new thing that you're building, especially if that thing is the cloud, right? Because
Yeah.
the cloud brings a whole new level of risk to an organization.
Yep.
Luckily, the cloud does not really have encryption type ransomware, but they do have exfil, where they steal your data and then they'll threaten to sell that data on the dark web
On the dark web. Yeah,
and
but
all
it's
that.
only a matter of time. It's going to be only a matter of time for they have some kind of encryption thing that they can do on the cloud and
Yep.
do things. They're coming out with different stuff all the time. You're right. And it's scary. I mean, the one thing to do to keep in mind too, as folks are moving to the cloud, is no matter what provider you go to, you go to, Azure or Google, or you go to Amazon, you are always responsible for securing the data. No matter what service or cloud service you're using, you are responsible. So you need to make sure that you secure that data. It is critical today. And that's a great point, Mike. I think it's important. The cloud just opens up another whole different threat landscape out there.
Yep.
So some of the other, and we were just talking about this, the ransomware leaked victims, right? The industries that we're seeing a lot is manufacturing, business, retail, right? And I talked about construction, but the key here is organizations under 100 employees is what we're seeing a lot of, those small to medium-sized organizations. No matter what you're selling, you could be selling t-shirts. It doesn't matter. You still can be a victim of ransomware. And think about this. And I have no idea how to run an organization or be a CEO or anything like that. But if I built a company and that was my livelihood and my family's livelihood, no matter what I was selling. And then I have employees that work for me and their livelihood relies on me. I would do everything in my power to make sure, and that's easy for me to say, right? But I would make sure that, hey, I want to protect them as much as possible. And that's where, you were talking about having that buy-in at the upper management level, and really starting to, as you're building out the environment, keep security in mind and put that in the
Yeah.
budget. So you start securing when you're loading it, you're installing new software or new whatever it is, or expanding out your environment. Keeping security there as well will help you in the long run. Sometimes it may be a little bit more, but like if you said, Mike, budget that out, it's
Yep.
going to help you
I mean,
100%.
it's so incredible to see the outlier here, but it makes perfect sense. You have a small organization that is maybe a mom and pop business at 10, 15, 20 employees. They're
Right.
maybe bringing in $1 to $2 million, and something happens in there. They expand, they get a couple more stores, or they figure out a solution that makes them grow quickly, right? You're moving from that $1 to $2 million in revenue up to 10, 15, 20 million. You're starting to get employees. You hit your 50 employee mark and you're struggling with all the HR stuff that comes with it, right? Security is normally second to the business growing at that point.
Right.
And the security lags the initiative, like the actual business initiative here. And you can just see the outlier of over 3,500 companies hit in the last 3 years that were less than 100 employees. It's because they weren't big enough to be a target when they were small. Now they have the revenue. Now they have enough endpoints on the internet that are giving them exposure to these threat actors. They're found, and it's worth their time to start doing their encryption here. You have a few servers that are probably critical to delivery and stuff like that. They encrypt it, they exfil all your data, they do double extortion, and they're going to get $100,000 to $1 million payout either from your insurance company or you.
Right.
right? Like that's what's happening here. And that's what's making the threat actors kind of, I wouldn't say they target this. I just think it's these organizations aren't securing themselves because of the landscape that they're in,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
just interesting to see the data here. And
Right.
that outlier is crazy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, think about some of these small organizations. They get lucky, and all of a sudden, one of the big manufacturers like Target or Walmart want to sell some of their stuff, and maybe
Exactly.
they're not secure. And that's how threat actors are getting. We saw that with Home Depot and even Target, right?
Yep.
I think it was Home Depot was their HVAC company
Yeah.
that was compromised, and
Yeah,
they
I
got
mean a
to Home
Liebert
Depot.
system, it's
Yeah.
smart. They're trying to manage them from remote locations to be able
Yep.
to centralize the management of their stores. And it's something as simple. It's the smart devices, something as
Yep.
simple as a heat exchanger or an air handler that is connected to the internet. But I mean, to like correlate this slide matches our, again, very similar to what our, in the last 2 years, the 200 plus breaches that we've done, half of them are that size, that less
Yeah.
than 25 million, right around 100 employees or 50 to 100 employees is where we're seeing most of the work.
Yep. Yep. We see it every day. So, how do you combat some of this stuff? So, we're gonna bring this all home for you. So, um, you know, having that full visibility, looking at network and endpoint, your cloud, looking at email, edge devices, right? That's where MDR service helps. Going into our XDR platform, looking at the dark web visibility, watching to see if there's any of those leak, your credentials are leaked or any of those different markets trying to steal your stuff. We're actually offering now with our dark web service takedown services to get your stuff off the dark web if possible. And our deal detection and response is that first three, right? That initial containment zone. We want to stop it before anything ever happens to that point, right? Before they get into your environment, start disabling all the things and taking over everything and encrypting all your stuff, right? That's where we want to get to.
Absolutely.
And that brings us over to what you guys do, Mike, for the incident response stuff, which I think is critical and a great service.
Yep. I love this slide because it talks about the preventative things you could do on the left. And if for whatever reason you do get impacted, the things that you should do after the fact. I did see that we'll be sending these slides out.
Yeah.
I know we're getting tight on time, but I do want to talk through some of that preventative stuff. MDR from eSentire and Intera, great solution to protect the majority of your infrastructure. MFA is an absolute must. The way that these guys are getting in is stealing credentials either through phishing, and if you don't have MFA, it just wide open for them to be able to get into your environment. Email security, trying to stop them from being able to send those phishing emails to get that. So AV at the email side, just general basic DKIM, DMARC, SPF record type settings on your email. So just basic security settings for your infrastructure. VPN, just get rid of it. You don't need it anymore. Build your applications properly. Implementing application controls, so preventing what can be installed. So using solutions that don't allow end users to install any application that's not approved by the organization. And then that last one on here, so important. Immutable air-gapped backups. Immutable means nobody can delete the backup, not even the people that manage and maintain them. Air-gapped means not integrating your backups to your identity solution and protecting from a network standpoint, not connecting the management of your backups and the backend storage of your backups to the regular network. So you need either a jump box and a hardened system to be able to connect into that. If you have backups, you will not have to pay a ransom. You
Yeah. I
you
was
may
just going to
want
ask
to
you that. Yep.
still,
Right.
right? You may still want to, so they don't release the data that they exfilled, but you don't have to keep your business running. And then the next step that we always talk about that's so critical, if you want to be able to restore quickly, invest in storage level snapshots, a good quality SAN that has the capability of restoring at a block level, a volume level. Even if you have backups, it's going to take you weeks to a month to restore your infrastructure, no matter the size you are. If you're bigger, it's even longer. If you have
Right.
storage level snapshots, you'll be able to restore in days. Because you're just going to shut down VMs, restore the volumes back to how they were, and power them back up. You might
Yeah.
have to
And
rebuild your hypervisor, but that's easy compared to restoring hundreds of servers.
100%, Mike. And I love that. I think the air gapped backups are critical. Just like Mike mentioned, you guys got backups, you will not have to pay that ransom. We provide MDR services, but we don't provide multi-factor authentication, which is critical. And then the backups, we don't do backups at eSentire. This is where eSentire can help you with that stuff, because this is going to help eventually really try to build and take that zero trust approach, right? Multi-factor authentication, having those backups to make sure that your data is protected. That is critical. And all these other pieces will fill those gaps and help out. But, at the end of the day, the backups, I really, truly think that will be, something of that should be a priority,
Yep.
100%. Yeah, I love that. I think it's important, Mike.
Yeah, and I know we're running through this portion pretty quickly. So if there's ever any questions you guys have, reach out.
Yes.
We'd be happy to schedule time with both of us talking through both sides of our solution stacks. Because we work so well together. We are very complementary in our services. Happy to talk through any side of this to make sure that you guys are set up for not talking to us on the IR side.
Right.
We want to
Yeah.
do everything possible to make sure you're not on the right side of this, the reactive side.
100%, and I'll let you take this one, Mike, here too, breaking the glass. I'll break this out for you because I know we are short on time, but this is what we're
Absolutely.
talking about. Yeah.
So the thing here is, if you're ever in the situation, one of the proactive things that you could do for the reactive side, that's a very counterintuitive sentence, is to get a cybersecurity retainer where we will onboard you just like we normally would in the first day or two of an actual breach. We would do all that beforehand to be ready if something does happen. And then the rest of the retainer can be used for proactive services. If that's tabletops, business continuity plans, IR plan creation, anything that you guys need from a proactive standpoint, the retainer credits can be put towards proactive services. If you need EDR, MDR, MFA, any of that stuff, we can use those credits. And you also still get our 15-minute SLA for if there's a breach for containment and remediation of those incidents.
Love that. So just real quick, some of the key takeaways. Everybody can be a victim of ransomware. It doesn't matter what size organization. We are seeing those small to medium sized organizations. The initial access brokers, those eBay for ransomware, we're seeing tons of that stuff. Credential exposure. 25% of ransomware victims have their credentials exposed within 30 days of their incident being disclosed, ransomware leak sites. So these are, like Mike said, we're going to send you guys these slides. So you're going to have all this stuff. And then the recommendations. I mean, we just talked about this really till our faces are blue, but let us help you. Really, don't ever hesitate. Reach out to us. We will love to have a conversation about where you guys are at in your security journey, how we can help you, and take the next steps. Awesome. And we also do have that report that we kind of showed. We're going to get this report for you folks out to you as well. But thank you again for joining us today. I loved being here. Mike, thank you for all your time. It was a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the great conversation and back and forth. And thank you everyone for putting up with us for the last hour.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Really, it was great. Thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.